Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3, testing. This is a test. This is a test. 1, 2, 3, testing.
The network was being a little wonky.
Now my issue is I've created such long passwords for security that I like.
I know, that's why I'm on.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay. All right, Ian, you got your notes for the reiteration?
Yes.
Okay, good.
It's very short.
Okay, don't need that though. Okay. Let's see. Am I not done here? Okay. So the most up-to-date meeting agenda would be on board docs,
So the
right?
meetings tab, and then it'll be in featured.
Okay, today's the 24th. Business meeting.
Yep. Okay. We're through. All right, we're live.
Okay, thank you to everybody, welcome. I'd like to call to order the Pelham Board of Education Business Meeting of August 24th, 2022. And we'll start with
Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge of Allegiance. Do we,
Motion to reconvene in public.
motion to reconvene in public session.
We did it in exec.
We're in a
I
public session.
apologize.
Should we have a motion or reiteration of the executive session motions?
And reiteration, we went into executive session for the purpose of discussing the record of a particular student or students.
So we redo the pledge here?
Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Opening remarks. That's me.
Get to go first.
Well, thank you to everybody, especially welcome to Dr. Bowman and Tracy Holtz. We're very happy to have you here, and thankful already. I know you've already busy at work. We're so excited for the start of a new school year. I've got 3 kids at home. I'm very excited for them to start school, and I think they are too. Very happy and grateful to our facility staff. We saw during our retreat getting our buildings all ready to go. So happy for our teachers getting everything prepared, our administrators and principals. I know when I walked into the building, brought back a lot of memories, that new school year smell.
Floor wax.
Yes, wax
Floor wax.
and freshly copied handouts. So it's a very exciting time of the year. We had a very successful board retreat over the past 2 days, and we'll be sharing more about our goals for the district. Especially want to thank Sue for really helping us so much with that. And we all worked collaboratively with consultant Judy Wilson, and I think we're going to be in an excellent position. Yeah, with that,
Okay.
we can move on to approval of the minutes. Yes, can I have a motion for approval of the minutes for the annual reorganization meeting, followed by a business meeting of July 12th, 2022? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? No. So section 4.1 is superintendent's report.
Let me just ask quick, Colleen, I know you're in a new location. Are you able to see the motions? Yes. Okay. Okay, raise your hands and raise them high when you make, okay. Great. So thank you. Just want to, as we get situated in New Year, we're kind of a little adjustment at the table because there's a few more of us now at the table than there used to be, which is Dr. Owen Machine. Dr. Owen Machine said, I too want to welcome our newest, my newest cabinet members, Dr. Alice Bowman and Ms. Tracy Holtz. Tracy will always be a month older than Alice, the same way that Jim is always a month older than me, and Steve's the big brother. As far as our time in the district, but it's been a wonderful having both of them join the team. As I shared with the board earlier, the summer is always interesting because that's the time when the only time when most of the administrators can take vacation. So today was the day that our administrative team all returned from well-deserved summer vacations, and we know they're diving and doing everything to get the school year up and running. And having Alice and Tracy join us, of the entire summer, I think the 5 of us had 4 days together prior to today. But we
all 4.
all of us in the same place at once, and that's just the nature of things. But we were able to accomplish a tremendous amount in that time. So already excited about what Tracy and Alice are bringing to the district. They're already diving in. They're going to share some of that in their updates today. We're excited tomorrow to hold our annual administrative retreat to kick the year off. So we'll be at the Terrytown House Estate tomorrow for the day, really digging into the goals and plans for the year, team building, and all the work that is ahead of us. So we're really excited about that, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the goals as far as the direction for this year. So I just appreciate both of them being here and really the fresh perspective that they're bringing. And I appreciate Steve and Jim, too, with just the expertise that they're sharing and the mentoring and really the partnership that they've been extending to both Alice and Tracy. There's a lot of history, a lot of culture in Pelham, and it's all incredibly important to understanding the work. So, and that's really what they've been able to bring. So I'm really excited about our cabinet and the work they're going to do together this year. Next, I got a number of random items, as I usually do. So this is that time of year where it's a lot of logistical things. One email that folks should be looking for. I know Alex has been working with the business office, putting together just an update for our students and families on food service for the coming year, so please watch for that. The bad news is lunch will no longer be free. The federal program, and Jim will probably touch on this, the federal program's come to an end. But the good news is that Pizza Day is coming back to the elementary schools. So I wish we had an audience to get applause on the thank you. Thank you.
Or we don't know.
And yes, it is, I believe, yes. And Jim has been working diligently with them to make sure that we could make sure that it was Pelham Pizza coming back. So we're going to have hot lunch, we're going to have pizza, and we're going to do as much normal this year as humanly possible. So I think with that, I'm going to transition just a little bit of update on COVID. It really is my goal and hope that COVID does not dominate everything that we do this year. And we're going to talk again more about this coming up. Our goal is to really recenter on what it is we're all about, which is teaching and learning, the core work, the innovative work that has been our district. So with that, I'm going to be meeting tomorrow with the administrators to go through a COVID update. The state, as I think everyone knows by this time, issued school guidance. I think they did their typical Friday move. At least it was Friday morning instead of Friday afternoon or evening, but Friday move. And the good part is that they really removed just about all restrictions. So that does make it very, very easy for us to go back to pretty much something close to normal. So we're going to be going through the details of that with the administrators tomorrow, and then we'll be putting something out to the community prior to the start of school, just with updates on that. Things like test to stay are no longer required. Staff and student weekly testing no longer required. Exposure, quarantining when exposed, no longer required. I think those are critical pieces of us being able to have all students here and all staff here as much as humanly possible and get back to that really business as usual that we had before COVID. So that's exciting. So there'll be a few protocols and things in place, but largely we're looking forward to welcoming parents back into the buildings, to really reinstituting all those traditional activities, and really having much more of that face time with our families and community. So more to come on that, and once we go through that with the administrators. Just wanted to provide that to you. We're continuing to monitor enrollments as we get close to the beginning of the year. I know the board members see this each year, and the new board members are starting to see this as well, the fluctuations that happen in enrollment. We think we know what's coming as of June, then we get a little better picture as of July, then all of a sudden the flurry happens from mid-July through the start of school. We're in that flurry right now. So we're continuing to monitor those on a regular basis, really wanting to try to keep the class sizes definitely always within our board guidelines, but even a little bit on the smaller side to the degree that we can this year, again, for spacing reasons, but really more to make sure that we're able to really focus on each student and continue to strengthen them after the last couple of years that we have been through. Related to school opening, I will put out there the elementary mailings. I think those mailings are dropping by the end of this week. So class placement letters will be coming home with the course between now and next week for elementary students. Middle school schedules open on the first day of school, and so students will get them then. The high school schedules were supposed to be released last week. That got postponed due to some work that still needed to be done. I believe an email went out to families about that today. We're expecting those at latest by the beginning of next week. So please watch for those. You didn't miss anything. Originally, the date changed from what we originally had thought it would. We wanted to make sure that they're correct as they go out. I am confident that Jim is going to touch on our capital projects tonight, so I don't want to steal too much of his thunder. So we are drawing near on some of those, not as near as we had hoped on others. So I'm going to let him go through that work. We'll let him go through that work when we get there. Tonight on the board's agenda, we have the approval of two significant documents as part of the annual cycle of approvals. They were presented to the board in a hearing back in July. So this is the meeting where we vote on them, having taken into account feedback that we have heard since. One being the safety plan, which again, Jim will touch on, highlight throughout his report, and the other being the code of conduct, which I can touch on when we get to that part of the meeting as well. We are in the midst of the search process to fill the vacancy for the assistant principal at the high school. So we've done, we had a great pool of candidates apply, a large pool. We've done screening interviews. Thank you, Dr. Bowman, for joining me with that. And we have a committee, focus group committee set up of shared stakeholders, set up to interview a slate of candidates this Friday. And then we hope to bring the top candidates from that to interview with the Board of Education, my cabinet, and then eventually for an appointment. So to that end, depending on how things proceed, we may ask the board to consider a special meeting for purposes of interviewing candidates to expedite the hiring. The way the processes work at this point, if we interview on Friday, the board would not have the opportunity to interview finalists until September 7th, and they would not have the ability to appoint until the end of September, and most people in education do not submit their resignation until they've been appointed in their new position. So then you're looking 30 days out from the end of September before we could get an AP in place. So in order to expedite that, we may request a special meeting for that purpose. So we'll keep you informed about that. And Michael, I'm going to ask you to help me remember. I know there was two others I was going to touch on.
Maybe.
So just to go back really for a moment to the enrollment discussion, on our board, our district website, there are, I believe it's under the parent tab, you can look up our class size guidelines. They're also included in our budget presentation each year. That's something, it's a longstanding practice by the board. A lot of that, those guidelines, minimums and maximums are set out of some of the other collective bargaining agreements that we have. So those are longstanding class enrollment guidelines. So generally, you're going to see most of them at the lower grades, minimum of 15 students in a class, max of 23. And then as you go up to the older grades, the minimum stays the same, but the max does go up. So that formula has worked very successfully for the district for many, many years. These last couple of years, our enrollments are down a little bit district-wide, which has enabled us to keep most of those classes at the elementary level below that max of 23. And as of right now, we're below that across the board. So we're, again, continuing to monitor that, and we'll continue to watch that as we go forward. I didn't know if the board had any questions or feedback or thoughts on the enrollment or class size issue before we moved off of that. Okay.
You had shared with me, it is part of the budget documents.
Correct. Yep.
And we had kind of talked about if we were to think about something like adding a aide or teaching assistant in kindergarten, and to do that district-wide would be like at least
Little
half a
over
million dollars.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Just
so
to put
that's-
it in perspective.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Right now, we don't have aides in our kindergarten classes, and traditionally we have not. And part of that was because we've kept class sizes on the lower side so that teachers are able to meet the needs of all students. If we wanted to consider something like, adding additional support, we'd have to look at that through the budget process. And it would be minimally, something at least in the $500,000 category. So again, something to think about. And, as we head towards the budget season, I'm sure we'll prioritize, speak with the board about priorities heading into that. So, right.
Dr. Garcia, do we have any of partnerships with Iona this year? You'll probably be speaking to that, where we have some
Well,
student
in the
interns.
past, in the past, we, traditionally, the district has worked with some graduate schools, most likely on Iona, but we've also expanded to other schools, and invite some graduate students to meet with us and then join us as graduate interns. And then they would serve in the capacity to kind of be partners, but also be assistants with teachers in mostly the elementary classrooms where there's usually higher enrollment in some of those classrooms. When the pandemic hit, obviously, I think that many of those interns or those prospective graduate students actually were able to get jobs as full-time teachers. That cycle really hasn't ended. I've met with some of the schools already, and we've been trying to, filter in some interns. I am still meeting with them this week. I think they'll kind of trickle in, but that number usually with the budget, we have 10 slots open traditionally every year. We filled 1 last year. Okay, right now I think I may have 2, but I'm still, working a lot of angles. So that's not the end of it, but it's a great experience for those usually pre-service teachers, obviously, who want to get an excellent experience working with our children and our teachers. And in the past, we have hired interns through our system, gained great experience to become our classroom teachers. So we're still working that angle. So there's still promises. More hope, I think, this year than it was last year.
Thank you.
And the only other final item that I wanted to touch on at this point was, I know the question had been raised a couple times about the idea of a pool on Franklin Field, and I see Mr. Trainer here tonight, so we've had numerous conversations. Thank you for being here. Just about the viability of that. So that was something that I just wanted to bring up, to share. I know that we've had a couple meetings with the town, with the Recreation Department. They've shared their scheduling with us to try to give us a sense of the field use, which is pretty significant in the 3 to 6 o'clock hours through most seasons of the, not the winter, but through the fall, the spring, and the summer, as well as our school use during the school day and school year. which is generally a recess for Colonial 4th and 5th graders, special events from the middle school, graduations, moving up ceremonies, the evacuation site for the middle school, and occasionally recess, special activities, those sorts of things. And then, as I said, the rec sports fields, you're using the fields basically 3 to 6 each day after school, and occasionally, or in some nights, as late as 8, 9 o'clock, as long as it's light. I mean, that's kind of the thing that cuts it off there. So significant use by us in the rec department, a lot of travel soccer, travel lacrosse as well to fill out any times the schools aren't using the fields. They are filled by our local recreation team. So, so that's the concern that was shared about field use and the loss that would be to the district. I just wanted to share that as a little bit of background information, and I know that some folks may wanted to talk a little bit about this item, so I wanted to just open that up for thoughts and questions to the board.
I know you mentioned rec department, but even outside of rec, that field is fully programmed, like for between PE and
Yeah, thank you. That's
recess
the
and-
one I forgot. Yeah, I mean, really, the first priority is always the school district. And Jim, feel free to jump in if I'm missing pieces here too. If the school district uses during the school day for physical education, recess programs, evacuation drills, et cetera. So during the school days, during the school year, very consistent there. And then the after-school hours are significantly used by our school athletics first. And then when we're done with the fields, they fill in with rec. And then through the summer in particular, it's all from July 1st to the start of the fall season, which is usually mid-August. It was this week. It was the 22nd this year. It is nonstop recreation, travel lacrosse, travel soccer, field hockey, all those programs run by the rec department. So it's
You
really
mentioned this,
consistent.
but just to draw attention to it, because that location is also needed for evacuation
Correct.
drills.
Yep.
And if there were to actually be a real evacuation,
Correct.
that's,
Yeah, we, one good example, back in the early days of COVID, when we did have students here hybrid, I think we discovered we had a case in the 7th grade in about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning. And Alice, as a former middle school principal, will understand the ramifications of that. We had to evacuate the entire 7th grade, middle of the school day. So pulled out
Oh,
our
how-
safety
How
binders.
times have changed,
How
right?
times have changed. Yeah, I know. One case. But we did it. It was incredible, and the staff did an incredible job because we had the space to go to. The protocols had been practiced. Monitors were deployed. Teachers were deployed. Students were all moved to an outdoor, safe location at that time. That's what we all, thought. Outside, fresh air is the best thing. And then we were able to do a whole staging drill and do a reunification drill and release all students then to their parents within an hour. Yeah. Yeah.
and you had mentioned to me also about, of course, we're not fully in control at the state education department,
Yeah.
kind of has a
Right.
little bit of say over what goes on.
Yeah, and again, there more research would have to be done on this, but I think those of us who were involved through the bond year will remember the discussions of acreage related to enrollment, and how we were a very landlocked community, very landlocked school district, and Hutchinson was a good example of, under the current guidelines, the acreage is not large enough for the enrollment. So which is why when we considered, can we sell the old building, can we do pieces like that? That's what we were told at the time, we wouldn't be allowed to parcel off pieces of the property because they were already undersized. So we would have to do some research. I would be concerned potentially the same situation might present here, where we've got a high school, middle school campus with combined, 1,500 some odd students, and very little green space around it. So we may run into some barriers there as well. So those are kind of some of the pieces of the puzzle that, that concern me with this conversation.
And would the, who would bear the financial burden of maintaining this pool if it were built on our premises?
That would be us. If it remained our property, it would remain our responsibility. Jim, I know Jim's managed properties with pools before, so I know he's familiar with a lot of the operational costs.
I mean, There's a lot of details that would have to be looked at. Quite frankly, if you're building a pool, I would think you're probably pulling a bond to do that. In my experience, when a municipality is pulling a bond, you have to demonstrate that you will have custody of the property for the
Yep.
length of the bond.
Right.
I mean, that's, in a sense, that's what you have to do. So there would have to be something in place to do that. So regardless of who pays for it or what bond, you'd have to demonstrate some sort of custody over that property, again, for that period of time. So there's a lot of details behind it. And then, of course, the operation of a pool is intensive.
Yeah, absolutely.
The only other piece, and I've shared this with Mr. Trainer as well, to me, as a superintendent, I would want to see what would be the benefit to our students for the school program, given everything we use that field for, the kind of the cost benefit. I think of things like our physical education program. If we had a pool, we could offer a swimming program, potentially lifeguard certification, things like that. But a curriculum program, it would also have to meet the needs of our swimming program, boys and girls swimming, which is done during the winter. So that would be of concern to me, that would then need to be an indoor facility. So that's, I think, a different, lot more considerations when you're talking indoor versus outdoor facility. So those are some of the pieces, I guess, that, that I've shared a little bit of, and that I think would need to be considered. That is the end of my report for tonight. We've had a great long day, which I know we're going to talk more about when we get to the goals. 2 days, I should say.
Okay, thank you. 4.2 is Board of Education Committee reports.
No
I
committees.
don't think we have any committees. 4.3, Assistant Superintendent's update on authentic learning.
That's you, Dr. Bowman.
Here I am. So since joining the Pelham community on August 8th as my official start date, I've been very busy acclimating myself to the schools and the community. I've settled into the Sanborn MAP building, and I've been meeting with building leaders and curriculum experts as much as I can. I've seen all of the buildings, and so I've met with many of our building administrators, toured their buildings, met children who are participating in Pelham summer programs, and spent some time getting to know each of them, their pride, what they have as points of pride, and their hopes for the future. Also, as part of my onboarding process, I've spent time with both Dr. Callahan and Dr. Thompson, becoming familiar with process and procedure, as well as learning about their points of pride and hopes for the future. This morning, Mr. Savalas, Mr. Baker, and I met with our technical representative from Branching Minds over Zoom to discuss timelines for rollout and implementation, as well as the initial data that will be available to us as we roll out the program, and help to support our MTSS program. I'm excited to tell you that they will be getting me access to certain data as early as tomorrow morning. And so you can look for more information coming from my office on that as time goes on. As you also know, speaking of data, our New York State assessment data is embargoed right now. However, I've been in contact with our CIO, Ms. Hanlon, and together we're working to ensure that the assessment data that we have is used to inform instruction and foster student growth in a strategic manner that aligns with the district vision and mission. I plan to present this information to you in short order as soon as we have time to really take it apart, look at it, and see how we can best serve the needs of our staff and students with it. I will be continuing these conversations starting tomorrow at our administrative retreat with each of our stakeholder groups in the administrative level, and then certainly next week at our 2 superintendents conference days. And before we know it, we will have children knocking on the doors. There won't be 3 children in your house. And I can't wait to see all of them begin the school year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I forgot to mention, I'm glad that Dr. Bowman did, our superintendent's conference days are Wednesday and Thursday of next week. So we've been pulling a lot of those loose ends together. I think tomorrow with the administrators, we'll finalize all the plan, and really excited to provide all the training that will be coming forward to our teachers and our safety and special education support staff. Thanks.
And I just want to say, 'cause I know there is some anxiety about, where students are after the past 2 years. But I'm very confident in Dr. Bowman and Dr. Champ and our full leadership team to start analyzing that data. And I know it's embargoed, and we've been fully in compliance with that. But I'm very confident in the work that's happening to take that data and use it for the best for all of our students. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Any other comments or questions? 4.4, Assistant Superintendent's update on the whole child.
Okay. So I as well have been busy onboarding since I started with the district on July 1st and will forever be older than Alice. I've also had the opportunity, I'm sure, to meet with all the building principals, our Director of Humanities, Dr. Thompson, and our Director of Mathematics and Science, Mr. Callahan, Director of Guidance, our Director of Physical Education, Health, and Athletics. These were preliminary meetings, and it gave me the opportunity to learn about Pelham from their unique lens, which was valuable information. In addition, we also participated in a meeting about a week and a half or so ago where we had the opportunity to engage in discussion with the head of the teachers, administrators, CSEA, and facilities unions, and to get some feedback from them. I've also been fortunate enough to meet the clerical staff and teachers that have been around in our buildings as I've gone to visit, who are engaging in summer work. And last Thursday, which was the best part of my onboarding, actually, Dr. Bowman and I attended the kindergarten play date at Colonial, which was the greatest opportunity to meet with the PTA and the parents of our newest students who are graduates of 2035. I know, seems far away. Just a small specific on school counseling. As shared, I've met with Mr. Farrell. Today was my second meeting with him, so I'm orienting myself to the district's K-12 school counseling plan. In my first week at Pelham, I did sit in on finalist interviews for the elementary school counselor position, and I want to thank the Board of Education for your support in that approving the appointment of Lindsay Ferris, who will be our new elementary school counselor. I was very impressed with Lindsay's positive presence, her energy, her creativity, things she shared with us that she's done as a school counselor, and I think she's going to have the right approach and demeanor. She's going to be a great fit for our elementary students and engaging them in elementary guidance curriculum, so I'm excited about that. A note on nursing. So as noted on the board agenda for this evening, Ms. Jackie Huezo, with board approval, will take on the board-approved stipend as nurse coordinator for the 22-23 school year. I'm aware that Ms. Huezo started with Pelham last year as a district nurse who held the role as the COVID coordinator. As the nurse coordinator this year, she will continue to coordinate information we receive around COVID. We will always double check with our local Department of Health statewide, which is our kind of medical guidance up at the state level, just to make sure we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's and everyone's giving us the same information. So she will continue to coordinate that. In addition, she'll hold such additional responsibilities. She'll coordinate nurse meetings. She will develop and review our nurse office procedures and work on the development of a nurse handbook so we can be consistent across practices across all buildings, and make sure we're compliant with all of our state mandated reporting requirements, our immunization survey, vision survey, hearing, things of that nature. What's also great about Ms. Huezo is she will also provide nurse coverage should a nurse call out sick or need a personal day. I think most of our nurses, as in many districts, the last couple of years have been really challenging for them, not wanting to ever take a day off. And even prior to COVID, nurse subs have always been a challenge. So the fact that we have someone who is in a position to cover buildings, it's a staff member who knows our systems, our student information reporting, is a great benefit for us. So I thank you for considering her appointment this evening for that stipend. In regards to special education, just some quick notes. I have been able, as summer scheduling has allowed, to meet with the elementary and secondary supervisors, Dr. Ribeiro and Mr. Lau, just to get acclimated to our programming, our classes, our special education staff. We have started initial conversations just surrounding any pending student issues, plans for Superintendent Conference Day, just began to review procedures surrounding CSEs and compliance. We talked about professional development needs for special education staff, and the need as well to work on an updated special education plan that we will submit to the board for approval. That's something that's required by the state. In early July, I did meet with our SEPTA co-presidents, Ms. Joanne Colon and Ms. Stephanie Otero, to talk about SEPTA and their goals for this year, which they shared with me included increasing membership, communicating and collaborating with administrative staff, and widening their net. We agreed to meet regularly throughout the year when we talked about potential topics for parent information sessions that we could source and share speakers together, which included the possibility of a series of meetings specifically geared to our CPSE parents. That's a population that I think it's really important that we connect to real quickly. We discussed the SEPTA meeting dates, which have been added to the district calendar. So just a plug, the first SEPTA meeting date, September 12th, that's a meet and greet. And then November 3rd, that meeting, Dr. Ribeiro, Mr. Lau, and I will be the guest speakers. And we'll talk about the current continuum of special ed programs and related services in the district. So come join us. And also a plug for them, they will also be, I believe, on December 2nd, holding their semi-annual Pelham's Got Talent event, which is a great opportunity. I think their goal is to really engage students to just be inclusive with one another. So it's looks like it'll be a fun event. We also will continue the professional development work that has started in reference to expanding co-teaching in the district, and we have PD scheduled for Superintendent Conference Day related to co-teaching. And just some quick updates on SEL and wellness. As I onboarded, I picked up on some of the things that were already happening in the district, so we will continue with the work regarding responsive classroom. We have a 4th cohort that's being trained this Superintendent Conference Day, and there will be coaching dates scheduled throughout the year. The feedback from the elementary building principals is this is something that's become a very positive addition to the culture of their school building, so I think we'd like to continue to build upon that. I have met just today with our new district consultant from Cognitive Behavioral Consultants. That's the agency that we work with that has helped bring DBT to the district, which is right now our Tier 3 intervention for some of our students who need that. Last week, actually, I participated in a 3-day administrator PD, basically like a DBT boot camp for school leadership with colleagues from Harrison, Tarrytown, Byram, and White Plains school districts. And the purpose was for better understand how to apply communication techniques to improve school climate and make sure that we as district level administrators are supporting DBT teams and continuing to engage in the terminology and lingo that we want to see our mental health staff use. I've also met with Laura Caruso and Leah Tabaz of Pelham Together. They shared the history of their work with Pelham, and we talked about future ongoing collaborative work and partnership. Next week, I was fortunate to organize a meeting with myself, Pelham Together, and Michael Orth, who's the Commissioner of Westchester County Department of Community Mental Health. Mr. Orth is a colleague of mine. He's done great work with many Westchester communities, and I thought it would be an excellent opportunity for him to get to know Pelham, because when I called and I said, do you know Pelham? Have you come and visited us? And he said, we really haven't done a lot of work with Pelham. And I said, well, now you will. You're going to come visit. And I think it's going to be a great opportunity for Pelham Together to also meet with him and establish a connection with county-based resources. Coming to a close with board approval tonight, I hope you also will consider the appointment of Leela Zahad, who is the new social worker in the high school, who will be filling the vacancy that was left when Miss Kristen Quintana resigned. During her interview, Ms. Sahad shared her experience and knowledge with core social work school skills. She's got great technical skills. She has experience with direct counseling, case management, and knowledge of community and agencies and mental health resources. So I really want to thank the Board of Education for your support of social work positions in both Pelham Middle and Pelham High School. And lastly, I just want to thank the board, the old board, and for helping me come to join the Pelham family, the new board for not kicking me out yet. I really look forward to sort of the recommitment and the energy that we're going to do together as a board, and I'm really thankful for the opportunity to be part of a Pelham team and very happy to be here. So thank you.
Thank you. You've
Can I
been
ask-
very busy.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Just as a refresher, because it's been a whole season almost since we talked about this elementary counselor position. That person is specific to the Fly 5 program, correct? That we now will have like the counselor who had done that before is at Colonial, correct? And then there's a rotating counselor now?
Yes, so what I came to learn about Fly 5, which is an offshoot of Responsive Classroom and also meets the SEL CASEL requirements, which is what State Ed is looking for. Last year, that was done by one of our school psychologists, an additional person that we had, I believe, hired through the grant. She has subsequently been hired for a full-time position in Colonial. So I believe the thinking around this organization was, yes, the school counselor will be continuing with that Fly 5. We'll need to get her trained and onboarded so she could pick up that work easily. We'll also have her ability to utilize her for elementary guidance curriculum, which we need to follow, and she could also be a support with DBT.
Yeah.
So
It's a
yes, she will.
huge step in the right direction for Pelham to have not only, we were at a spot just a few years ago where we didn't even have a psychologist in each of our elementary schools. So not only do we have a full-time psychologist in each building, but we also have a school counselor, which is not a state requirement. It's only the requirement to have a counseling program in our elementary schools. So I think it's really kudos to all those who came before you and for you and the work of the district to prioritize elementary social emotional learning that way.
I cannot take credit for that, but I am.
But you'll
so-
carry the torch
I
now,
am
so.
so thankful, right, that this is something that the board has supported and believes in, and she's going to be a great addition. She's tremendous, full of energy. Sometimes when you start these positions, you have to create them. When there was no you before this, you have to make it up as you go. And she's energetic, a go-getter. She is so excited to be a part of Pelham, and I think it's going to be a great addition.
Thanks.
Just mentioning the Fly 5, I've heard from some parents just with questions, just wanting to get a better understanding. I know we've talked a little bit about curriculum nights and that sort of thing. So, that the curriculum nights, I guess, are an opportunity to learn about the ELA curriculum, the math curriculum, but since this is now part of our program, maybe this is going forward, a way to, spread more awareness about this part of our curriculum too.
Yeah, we can definitely look into that. And I would say if parents have any questions, by all means, speak to the building principal and our new counselor too, once she's up to speed on this, would absolutely be available, to speak with parents and share anything any questions they have about it, for sure.
And I agree, because I think the more that we share information with parents, they're also talking in the same dialect, using some of the same strategies. And Alice and I, we're going to work collaboratively, because is SEL curriculum. And what does that look like? And what does our continuum look like, K-12? And how does one program either lead into or support one another? So it sounds like right now we've got Responsive Classroom and Fly 5 at the elementary, in addition to, I believe, some additional programs that talk to, like we use Superflex and zones of regulation. And then at the secondary, we've been looking at focusing more on the DBT and Steps A. So as Alice and I continue to work together collaboratively on curriculum, I agree. I think it's a great opportunity to share with parents what this is about and what it means, and it's a great program. I was not familiar with it. I'm sending myself to a PD next week so I can learn more about it myself. I've read some of the materials. We purchased a portion of the curriculum which focuses on mindfulness, which again flows nicely with the work that we're doing with DBT. So, thinking about the continuum, what makes sense and what's the flow. But I do think we'll have opportunities as we talk about that to share information with parents.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay,
Our new section.
yeah. Section 4.5, Executive Director's Update on Human Resources and Leadership.
Welcome. I just want to say that after listening to my two new colleagues, I think it's pretty evident that they're going to be fantastic in their roles. My short time working with them, I mean, I knew Tracy beforehand as one of those demanding parents when I was a principal. So, but
What goes around comes
yeah,
around.
what goes around comes around. But she's, I just very thoughtful and very knowledgeable. And I think be a great addition for our school district. And Alice, I mean, we had lunch first in July, just to get to know each other. But just very excited about her understanding of teaching and learning and how that's really going to, I think, just excel us in ways we haven't done in the past. And it's going to be very much my honor to be able to work with them, but also, just to give them insight, to assist them, to be a resource for them as well. So I think it's a great, I think about the development of the team for the superintendent, and I'm just very excited to have this group of people to be working with. So I just want to say that. As you know, this school year and this summer, we have been working diligently, especially the administrators who've been vetting new teachers, going through the interview process, doing demo lessons with kids coming in. So as of tonight, we would this summer and also in the spring, hiring 16 probationary teachers, which is a large number, which is good. That's not just about people resigning. It's like only 2 people who resigned, but 5 retirements, 2 resignations, but most of them are because of the budget and because of the generosity of the district and expanding our programs supporting kids. We also have 4 leave replacements that we're filling. This year, we still have a couple more to go, but those leaves begin as later in the fall. We have 2 outstanding positions. When I think about outstanding, I'm like, as of September 1, we have to make sure these teachers are in place. One is in Spanish at the middle school and high school, and also a leave in music. So we're working on different plans in case we don't find the perfect person before school begins. We're looking even talking to some retired teachers that we've had in some of these areas to help us bridge before we can land on the best candidate. So those are the 2 which are keeping me up at night, and we still have a few weeks, so we make sure that they can be filled with the most highly qualified people we can find. And I just also, again, want to thank all the administrators who have worked diligently. I mean, I know that they've always had time in the summer, but they're the ones who have really had the insight of finding the best people. And then we talk about them, we meet with them, of course, and vet them. But I think they've just done a great job helping us making sure we have the best teachers for our parents. And of course, now moving into understanding more about the civil service realm. I know Jim's office, is still holding on to a lot of things too, helping us along. And it's been really insightful just kind of learning that world. Let's just put it that way. So I'm very excited about that as well. Next week, Monday, Tuesday, we have our new faculty orientation sessions. And it begins on Monday with technology boot camp, getting them acclimated to understanding all of our systems, making sure they can get onto the math program, the literacy program, and everything. With that, email, our attendance, and everything that goes with our student management systems, and our Google Classroom that we've been working very hard with the past few years, especially with COVID. John Sabalos is going to lead that work. Very excited about that in the morning. I'm then going to meet with them in the afternoon, just to kind of get them. I did it in the past, but now that I have a little bit more time with them, just onboarding, just understanding the culture, understanding Pelham. What have been sort of keys to success? What are some things to be cautious about? It's going to be, I think, just an opportunity for them also to get feedback. I want to learn about what they're apprehensive about, right? What their concerns are. So it'll be good to get to know them, for them to get to know the district. The second day, that's when we have our administrators joining us. We have board president will be joining us as well. Dr. Champ will be speaking with the new teachers as well. So will the teachers union have an opportunity to engage with them. So very excited about those 2 days. We haven't had a full 2-day session like this, I think, pre-COVID. So 2019 at the earliest. So this is exciting, and very much looking forward to it. Get them prepped for their superintendent's conference day on Wednesday. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any comments or questions? Okay, and welcome to your new role.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And my new seat.
Oh, yeah.
Different viewpoint. It's good.
4.6 is Assistant Superintendent's update on finance and facilities.
All right. Good evening, and I hope everyone had a pleasant summer. And to reiterate, don't want to reiterate what Steve said, just completely agree with my new colleagues, and it's great to be in the boat with you, and we're all rowing in that direction. So I agree. I think we're going to do, we're going to be able to really serve the students and the community well, and that's our goal. We've got a couple of things going on in the business office this summer. This is our busy time of the year. I know the board had an opportunity to kind of get a sneak preview on the buildings. That new school year smell is out there. That is the wax and the polyurethane and all that cleaning that's happening. And we hope you can see yourself in the reflection of the floors. And next week, we'll have an opportunity to share more of that work that's been done throughout the district. So that's exciting for us. As we look at it, over the course of the summer, the facilities department, they cleaned close to 500,000 square feet of buildings, 3,400 desks, 1,500 lockers, 160 classrooms, 7 gymnasiums, and on top of all the other work of painting, cleaning, whatever else is done. And in many cases, at least in the middle school and Hutchinson School, well, actually in all the schools, they're occupied many times through either school programs, extended school year programs, or recreation programs. So we really shout out to our facility staff and our partners, making sure we're able to get all this work done, and also at the same time make sure we get the students in the schools and our communities are able to use our buildings for the summer programs, which are very popular. We know that. This evening, we're going to be asking the board to approve the district-wide safety plan. This was put up as a public hearing at the meeting, at the board reorganization meeting. There have been no significant changes to the content of that district-wide safety plan. It has been significant in that we have added a couple of new names into that safety plan, namely, obviously, our new assistant superintendents. And there have been some personnel changes on the villages with regard to police chief and fire chiefs in the different villages. So we went ahead and we updated those names, so you would see that in the district-wide safety plan.
Jim, I'm sorry to interrupt in the midst. Just a quick question, and it actually reminded me of something I neglected to mention. I know on tonight's agenda is the approval of an interim assistant principal for the high school. So I don't know, has his name been added to the plan?
Not as of yet. When he's appointed, then it will
Okay.
come in.
So he will be appointed tonight, so I'm wondering if we approve the safety plan with that amendment.
Yes, and I
So that
would
we don't
say,
have to come back
if there's a
and make
mid-year
clerical.
review, we would make the modification of that name as well, and it's not something we would bring back to the board for modification.
Okay.
But we'll make that appropriate change in the document.
Thank you.
And we'd also look at our building emergency response plan to make sure we update that appropriately as well.
Great, thank you. And what I would just share with the board is tonight on the agenda, we are appointing Mr. Rich Lepreen to the interim assistant principal role. Those who've been with the district for a long time may recognize that name because he was an assistant principal in the district a long time ago. He's retired. He went on from Pelham to become a successful principal in a number in Katona, I believe. He's coming out of retirement to help us out for this first month and a half until we can fill that position, as I described earlier. So we'll look forward. He actually started today. He's being appointed today and started today. So we're happy to have him on board, and he'll be joining us at the retreat tomorrow. So, sorry, Jim.
Thank you. That's okay. Also part of our district-wide safety plan, with the upcoming superintendent's conference days, we're going to be doing training with our safety monitors, and certainly with our administrators tomorrow, reminding them of course, of our safety protocols. And we have their access to resources so that we can, again, as I shared before, we want to build our capacity. And that's really our goal in our safety committee. And this year, the last few weeks, the Village of Pelham and Pelham Manor Fire Departments have been doing some familiarization walkthroughs of all of our schools, and they've been doing it together, which is really great to see, and we've made our buildings available and open to them as they need it. So we want to maintain and foster really good partnerships, and we've been very fortunate that way. So I think that's terrific. Jumping back to facilities also, we've been working on our playgrounds, Julianne's playground. One playground that hasn't moved along is our Siwanoy slide. We have taken additional damage there, and sourcing that slide has been difficult. So what we've seen is we were hoping we would get that slide replaced quickly. Finding that slide has not proved as easy as we had hoped it would be. We've continuously taped it off, and we have unfortunately seen the tape being taken down by caretakers and/or parents. And then we've also seen the misuse of the equipment, bringing it further damage. So really what we're looking to do now is we've asked the vendor to remove that slide. We'll secure it, make it safe, and then when the new slide is sourced, we'll install it, and it'll be there to be able to enjoy for all of our students. For this upcoming year, of course, if you recall, the board did approve some monies for a master plan for our playgrounds. And this will be part of that work that we have as we look at the evaluation of our playgrounds and how we want our playgrounds in all of our elementary schools to look forward for the years to come. So these are all things that will be looked at as we go forward. And like we said, the equipment is maintained, but it is older. So getting those parts are difficult from time to time. In addition to the facilities work, our district-wide safety plan, we also had our external audit in process over the summer. So we've had, it's not yet complete, not due to any of our work. The auditors are still waiting on some information from the state of New York with regard to the pension plans, the state-run pension plans. All of that information has to flow through our financials. As we look at it, we are showing a surplus of $538,000, very close to what we shared with the community as part of the report card, the state report card that we have to put out as part of the budgeting process. That was $369,000, and again, we were within $169,000 of that final number on an $80 million budget. We will be able to provide more detail with that budget. There's still some minor entries that have to be made, but once all of that's completed, we'll certainly share that with the audit committee and the board to come as we move forward. On this evening's budget, or this evening's meeting, there's a couple of requests for transfers. One is for end-of-year transfers. The end-of-year transfers related to bills for BOCES services that came in the late July, early August timeframe for a pool rental, and then also at Sarah Lawrence, and also for utility expenses. And I think that's something we are predicting to see more of. And I think we've all seen that as homeowners, we've seen that increase in our utility expenses. Also last week, the business office completed a disaster recovery test as part of just testing our systems, making sure we're robust and we're backed up properly. We did that with the Lower Hudson Regional Information System. You'll hear us say LYRIC sometimes. That's what it stands for. It's the information systems related to programs related to BOCES, shared services. So again, the purpose of the test was to ensure our continuity of operations should our systems fail. And as part of the work, LYRIC backs our district information up daily, and it's stored up at that information is stored at 3 offsite locations. So again, this was something that was identified as part of that IT audit and follow-up work that we do as it's part of our annual plan now as we work through the year. The capital bond. So there's still scaffolding on the front of the high school. We've told the vendor we want it down by next week. We really want it down. I think we've all driven by the high school long enough and have seen the scaffolding there, and we tried to hide it as best we could with the windscreen showing the 100th anniversary of the high school. But I think now it's time. The windows have been installed, the stonework is just about complete, and we should be able to see that happening. So it'll be nice for the community to see the front of the building. It'll be nice for the students to recapture some of that space inside of the high school as well that's been out of access for them while this is happening. We may still have some painting and some slight restoration work, but it's great work. I mean, this is work that's really been going on for 2 years. And this was work that was identified as additional work related to the 2018 bond. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm really anxious about checking every day and seeing where the vendor is about pulling down that scaffolding. I think I want to get a tow truck and just have someone pull it down for us, speed up the process. The renovation of the former administrative offices and the former business office, I would say we weren't planning on that work being completed for the beginning of this school year, which was wise. I think we expected it to be much further along, and we've expressed our expectations very early on in this construction cycle. I've expressed pretty clearly my disappointment in the lack of progress. And what we're finding is that vendors generally everywhere are suffering from a lack of manpower. And I think everybody decided to take a vacation this summer, including tradespeople. And I think a lot of organizations may have taken on a little bit more work than they could have completed in the summertime period. So the work is continuing. I think, again, we would have liked to have seen it further along. It should come online during the school year, and when it comes online, it'll be made available to our students. But that renovation work here at the high school, like I said, it could be a lot further along. I think it should be a lot further along as far as the total work. As you look at Prospect Hill, I think you can see the addition of Prospect Hill really looks terrific. I mean, as far as a match works, the slate roof is just about completed as far as the installation. If you remember, it was really a safety and accessibility project related to the building not being ADA accessible and not having a safety vestibule in that building. So that's built now. The elevator is installed. It's being tested on Friday. We had a preliminary walkthrough with our fire inspector this week. They've, of course, identified some items. We've shared that with our contractors for their punch list. We want to make that space available, obviously, for the first day of school so that everyone can enjoy it. There's a classroom space that was built on the second floor, and that'll be a nice addition for, I think it's a 4th grade classroom that's going up there. So they're excited about that. And really, it's a 3-story building, but it's a 5-stop elevator because you, of course, you've got different levels and sub-levels with the library on the top floor. And then down by the gymnasium, we also have a lift, so we have full accessibility to the gymnasium for any mobility impaired folks. So after this, I think we only have one building in the district that won't be fully ADA accessible. So it's really great work in that as far as we move forward. But again, it's pushing them. It's staying on top of those vendors. It's making sure they complete the work. They know what the work they have to do. It's just getting those people there to get that work completed. I'm sorry.
I just want, so for the Prospect project, there shouldn't be any contractors or like construction equipment on site when school starts, or?
You may see some people there doing light work, either
Like punch list
after school punch list
Oh,
type
after
work
school.
or on a weekend generally. The fence around the field, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention the field, that orange fence should be down, or it's coming down this week. I may have given away the secrets. But the grass really looks terrific. We had new fence installed around the batting cages. So I think that project really looks terrific. The irrigation will hold up, and that field is accessible to the school and to the community starting this fall, really once that fencing is down. And we shared that with our recreation team too. So our partners in recreation, we meet quarterly, and they're aware of this for scheduling and utilization purposes. And of course, the principal of the school knows about this. So it's exciting. The site work out in front of the addition is in the process of being done. All of that has to be done prior to us receiving a certificate of occupancy for that space. Sidewalks and kind of just the front of the building space in that area. But you could see an HVAC person there during the day if the HVAC system is getting some balancing, or if the elevator's acting up. But for the day in, day out stuff, we don't want that once those spaces are opened up. And then it's after hours. And then Hutchinson School, if you've had an opportunity to drive by, it looks a lot different on Lincoln Avenue when you drive by. That corner on Lincoln and Third has kind of been finished off. There's a nice short knee wall there with a nice sidewalk. I think it came out really nice. You may have seen they built some forms. There was a wall there. There was a hole in the wall, so we've got to plug that hole up. And they're in the process of doing that, and that helps hold up the soil in the field on the upper level. So we're really excited about that. The steps that were located on Lincoln Avenue, they still need to be restored, but they won't be ready for the first day of school. But those steps are staying, and that's work that'll continue. And that's something that may continue during a school day if they were working on the steps outside or something to that extent. The contractor's really committed to getting that parking lot in the field pushed forward. We're just having it surveyed to make sure all of the points are correct and we're at the right pitches and everything. That's expected to happen tomorrow. With that, the contractor, he may do sod, he may do seed. He doesn't have to do sod, but he's mentioned that he would like to move forward, and he may actually do that, which would be terrific. With that, then we'll just have the installation of the big kid playground. There were some timing issues and demand issues, so that'll probably happen in the October timeframe, the installation of the big kid playground. But again, we're moving forward, which is really great to see. So those are the items related to the bond. I don't know if there's any questions.
Jim, is the field, I can't remember again, like rewind the clocks, is the field that we're putting back there, is it going to be a baseball field for Little League?
It is, and it's a small field, and I think the
Yeah.
field that was there before was a field for the younger kids.
Like
So
third graders and younger?
you're
from-
probably looking, first, second, third grade.
Yeah, yeah.
Fourth graders are going to put it onto Lincoln Avenue.
Yeah. Break some part of the new building.
But exactly, it's definitely a smaller field. And the field really starts right near the back of the building. And then you've got the play areas, which are closer towards where the front of the old building used to be. When you have an opportunity to visit, it's really nice. Just kind of you stand up there and you look south and you can look and see the village. It's just a really nice place to stand, and it's again, it's just a really terrific site. So we're excited to have it move along, though. It's been we
Been a
3 years
long
ago,
time.
4 years ago, I think 4 years ago, we blew up some rocks, and that was when 1,500 truckloads of rocks were removed to start getting that site prepared. So it's been a long time for sure.
At Hutchinson, wasn't there some unhappiness with the state of the kitchen, and we were going to
Yes.
lean into the vendor or the contractor and try and get some?
That's exactly right. It still is unresolved. Well, the vendors made a proposal to us. What we really asked for is from our construction manager to identify for us what the cost of removing what's in there now and putting something new in, what the value of that would be. And then we can have an opportunity to understand exactly what the value of their proposal is compared to the value of what we're looking for. Because some of the tile and the grout work, it was done correctly, but then it was stained and it discolored by some workmen. And they've tried to resolve it, but in some areas it's just not, we bought new and it doesn't look new. So I think that's probably the best way to describe it. But that's a sloppy job. It's a dusty job when you have to do it if you're taking that floor out. So that's something that would happen when school is probably in a closed situation.
And Hutchinson School will continue to use Julianne's playground
Yep.
for now.
For the start of the school year, and again, for the younger students, the playground on the side of the field, on the side of the building is still open and in full use. And used quite a bit by the community too, which is good to see. So that should be available, and the back field If sodded, it could be available too. So that would be nice for the kids. This evening, we're asking the board, child nutrition. So this evening, there's an item on the board that says emergency food services contract. It sounds, anytime it says emergency, you gotta say to yourself, wow, what's happening here? And what happened is at the July reorganization meeting, the board approved the renewal or the extension of our contract with Whitson's, who's our food services contract vendor. And what we learned over the summer is that due to the increase in the food and the increase in the price of food, they couldn't meet the financial obligations to the district under those terms because we had a contract that had a minimum return guarantee, and certain things that we demand as part of our contract, say elementary school pizza, there's just been changes in, everybody has incurred changes in prices, and those things get passed along. So in order to accommodate and make sure that we maintain the same quality and the same expectations, what we've done is we're asking the board to approve it's a one-year contract. We work with a food services consultant. He's shared that this is something that's been quite common in the last year because of these exact reasons due to supply and commodity price increases. And this is a one-year deal. This would have been the last year with Whitson's anyway, so we work on a new food services contract as the year goes by, but this is just part of opening the year. This would maintain us with the same vendor, the same pricing for students. So no, we're not proposing any increase in student lunch prices. It's just a matter of it's a regulation through the state because we have a subsidized food service program. We work with the National School Lunch Program, and this is why we're requesting it through the board. And with that, we had this past summer we had as part of our annual administrative review that happens every 3 years. So we had that happen this past spring in the June-July time period because we're doing an external audit. Let's do an audit on an audit administrative review on that. We received those results. We had 2 suggested improvements, one related to including some cancellation language on contracts, and the other the inclusion of some language with our purchasing and the encouragement of the use of minority women business enterprises. So those are the 2 findings. We had a closeout conference with the person from the state who shared the results with us and said they're really very good results. But it's really a great opportunity for us to have an opportunity to share our results and our operations with someone from the state. And then if there's anything that we can improve on, we want to do that. And relatively, it was a very, very smooth process that we had this summer. So we had that happen. I'm almost done, I promise. I've assembled and drafted a RFP, a legal services RFP, or a request for a proposal. I've shared that in the weekly update drive for the board to review, and certainly you'll have an opportunity to review that. I assume the president of the board will have an opportunity to communicate with the members. And as you move forward with that, if there's any suggested reviews or revisions or any changes, we can work through that, and then I'll work on a timeline for issuing that RFP. So that's ready to go. Business, we're still working on safety monitor interviews. We're looking to hire folks. People come and they go, and many times they tell you they're not going to stay until a little bit later, and that's understandable. So we're still doing that to make sure we have the people in place for this summer. We've got a couple of items on tonight's agenda for transfers, for athletic supplies, and the one I mentioned before for end of year transfers for utilities and BOCES. We've got an item for Sarah Lawrence for the boys' swimming pool. So for the winter season, you already approved one for the girls' season at the reorganization meeting, so it's a little bit like deja vu all over again. I won't ask you to vote on a pool agreement every board meeting, just the first 2 of the year. And then we've got another one, our busing contract, approval of our busing contract for our out-of-district students and special education students for this upcoming year as part of our agreement with our BEPT consortium. A request for proposal approval with a math consultant for professional development. And lastly, disposal of some equipment, which is mainly outdated Chromebooks. and again, receiving board approval to dispose of that equipment. I apologize for talking so long, but we've been busy.
Got to end with pizza.
Well, again, we.
The man who's making Pizza Day return. So take some
We're
credit
working
for
on
what
that.
is
Well,
due.
it happens if the board can help us make it happen. Not too much pressure. But again, I think returning back to normal and making that happen, again, this is why, predominantly why we want to make sure we want to make it work. And we're not, again, as part of that, we did have a minimum guarantee. We've asked the vendor to remove that minimum guarantee. So it's not like this district will be subsidizing the food services program. We're just going to receive a minimum guarantee. And this is a one-year contract. Thank you.
Thank you to you and
Thank
everybody in
you.
the business
Gosh.
office for, it's a lot of work to get school up and running.
Yes, it is.
5.1 is communications and comments from the public. So I'll invite people to come up, share your name and address.
Hello. Oh, hello. My name is John Miller, 322 6th Avenue.
Oh, we're doing this together? Cool. I'm Deanna Zamet. I also live at 322 6th Avenue.
We have 2 students in the school system here. We have a statement regarding the code of conduct. So, would you like to read it, Deanna?
Sure. Yeah. That's better. Okay, so thank you very much for hearing our concerns. I know that this was originally reviewed in July, and we were on vacation like a lot of people, so we appreciate the opportunity. Essentially, we're concerned that the code of conduct as written and previously informed doesn't adequately protect the overall academic, emotional, and physical well-being of the student body. We think that the code of conduct must be a code for faculty and administrators as well as for students. And while we understand that there are guidelines laid out for progressive discipline, we don't really think that the code as written adequately protects students' rights. For that reason, we're asking that the board consider taking the following 3 actions. Number 1, we'd like the board to augment the section of the code that pertains to students reporting code violations to address the very real role that misinformation plays and fear plays in the social media-driven, anxiety-ridden world of adolescence. You need to make sure that in demanding that students help enforce the code of conduct, you don't lead them to actually violate the code of conduct's existing clauses about discrimination, defamation, and harassment. We cannot allow the code of conduct to serve as a license to spread rumors, take conversations out of context, or settle scores under the guise of acting out of an abundance of caution. Students should be disciplined according to their actual actions and not the unallayed fears of others. We all know that there is a historical basis for concern about how fear and misinformation especially impact already marginalized people. We would suggest that the district augment the code to better protect students' rights to privacy and specifically to prevent the inspection by faculty of students' personal cell phones without consent from parents or the direction of law enforcement. We would suggest that you allow an externally conducted review of the district's disciplinary process that evaluates the tight timelines that are in place for investigating code violations. We're concerned that even in situations where there is no present danger to students or faculty, the code's mandated lockstep cycles of letters, meetings, and immediate 5-day suspensions nevertheless creates a pressure cooker situation that does not allow for thoughtful consideration or explanation of alleged violations, especially when they're student reported. When the code of conduct makes such liberal use of the vague phrase, reasonable interpretation, then we need to know what oversight is in place to interpret what is reasonable. We ask that you provide transparency into the suspension hearing process, especially as it relates to the selection and briefing of outside hearing officers. We need to know what the district does to ensure that these officers are well informed, up to date on technology, and impartial. Further, I would suggest that parents should have a voice in the appeal process. Parents should have the right to speak directly to the board when they are appealing a suspension and not rely on closed-door deliberations. We also ask that you assess the district's capacity to provide suspended students with quality interim educational services, especially when those students require special services under law. These disciplinary policies are too important to just rubber stamp without serious, in-depth consideration of their profound, often life-altering consequences for children, especially for already marginalized students and those with special needs. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think we hear what you're saying, and you raised some very important points. And I think we continue to evaluate the code of conduct in our board policy committee, and I have notes on what you said, and we'll definitely take that into consideration. So I appreciate you taking the time, and I know it's not easy, so thank you.
I'm Michael Trainer. I live at 622 Pelhamdale Avenue in Pelham. I made a proposal for a town swimming pool to the town supervisor and recreation commissioner. Okay. So I made a proposal to the town supervisor and the recreation commissioner for a town swimming pool. They hesitated. It's something to think about. But now they've come around to the point where they're entirely in favor of it. The town supervisor is in favor. The recreation commissioner is enthusiastic. You can see this is a great addition to the recreation program. I think he realizes that recreation in Pelham is pretty much limited to people who run fast. There's not really much outdoors for senior citizens, toddlers, handicapped people, special needs people. There really isn't anything. But a pool would address that. Now, there was a question about who's going to pay for it. It's going to be paid for by the users, just like everything else in Pelham. Little League is paid for by the users. The travel soccer is paid for by the users. The tennis courts are paid for by the users. The swimming pool is going to be paid for by the users. There'll be a town project run by the town under the joint field maintenance agreement in non-school hours or days. And of course, it'll still be available to the school in, let's say, school days in June, which can get pretty hot. I would think of that the fifth graders might make use of it, especially in June, before they come to the middle school. It would also be a great capital asset for the town and for each home in the town. I think that maybe after the library, maybe before the library, brokers are going to take people past the town pool when they come to Pelham. So I would think that Dan McLaughlin, town supervisor's position is reasonable. He's willing to name, or is about to name, a town pool committee to look into some of the questions that have been raised. And he's willing to proceed if he feels confident that the Board of Ed is going to let him have some 1/8 of that field and not pull a rug out from under him. He doesn't want to get going on this thing and then have somebody say, well, 1/8 of that field is just too much for your people, for the town recreation. So that's his position. And I might take a different position, but that's what he needs to know from the school board, that he's realistic in proceeding with the town pool committee with a view toward a pool at Franklin Field, which is centrally located, accessible to everybody in Pelham, especially all the kids in Pelham, and has plenty of parking on non-school days, which is when the town would be running it. So the supervisor needs some encouragement. And if I were you people, I would say, yeah, sure, but we're going to have somebody on that committee. But that's up to you.
Thank you.
Right?
Yeah, but I think we really appreciated your suggestion. We have to kind of take our guidance from our school administrators who have, Dr. Champs reviewed it pretty extensively with the facilities staff and the athletic director. And the fields, especially around the middle school and high school, are in heavy use for our physical education program and athletics. We also need them for safety in terms of evacuations. And, you know, the state education department expects us to use our resources primarily for education. So that's how we're being guided. And at this time, we cannot move forward with, you know, using some of that precious field space for a pool. Do you have anything
No,
else?
and I thank you, and I do thank you, Mr. Trainer. I know I applaud your intent, because I know we've spoken about you know, a lot of your goals for this. But as I shared with you when we met last time, I can't recommend moving forward because of I think the loss of the field space for all the current purposes that we have. I'm not confident that the gain of the pool to the district and to the students of the district for the school programs would be worth that loss. So that's, as I shared with you when we met, that's kind of where I stand on it. But I absolutely applaud your the reasons for why you're trying to do what you do.
Right, but remember, we're only talking about 1/8 of that field. I can't imagine anything that the Colonial School students do when they come over during the day, or the junior high school students do on 2.2 acres, that they can't do on 1.9 acres, including evacuating.
A clarifying question. So I had asked earlier, who bears the ongoing financial burden?
Users. They're like other
Right.
municipalities in southern Westchester. It's a self-contained budget that pays for, you know, lifeguards, electricity, the water, whatever. And the users, the people every year sign up for a permit or membership or whatever, they're the ones who
Right.
put the bill.
So in your proposal, the school system would bear zero additional cost?
Zero. The pool would be a self-contained unit or whatever, would pay for itself. I think like travel soccer does.
And the cost of construction?
That's going to be paid for by users also.
Okay.
What I would envision is that the town would get a line of credit, and if they proceed with the pool, pay out as construction proceeds. So not a big loan right at the front. The users, by signing up, we're talking about maybe $750 a family. By signing up, it'd be nice if they could keep up with the payments. That would be nice. But even if this pool committee or company runs a deficit and takes a while after the pool opens to catch up, well, that's the way it is. All the other municipalities comparable to ours have town pools, and we don't. And I don't know that donating or dedicating all of the school's property to people who can run fast just doesn't seem right. It's not right.
Thank you. Going to move on to section 6, financial reports and motions. I think I'll take 6.1 through 6.5 as a consent agenda. We've spent quite a lot of time speaking about this. But we can delve into the goals a little bit more.
Perfect.
Do I need a motion for that, or?
Yeah.
Okay, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
All in favor?
I just have one thing
Oh.
to, sorry, one thing to edit.
Mhm.
Will's name is spelled incorrectly in one of the committee. I know it's not
Oh, I'm sorry.
earth-shattering, but
Well, thanks for looking out for me.
I always look out for you, Will. It's one of the second or third time I can tell you where it is. But.
Okay.
Did you get the motion?
Will's
Okay.
name,
A
the
clar-
last name
just
is
a-
spelled
a
incorrectly in
typo.
one of the places, just
Typo.
small item.
Okay. Now, are we voting to approve these items or to
Any questions or comments?
any questions or comments?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm happy to review, just to touch on quickly the items. And,
Uh,
I know
sure.
If you wanted to read the goals.
I'll read the
and
goals,
then
yeah.
I can provide the
That's
background.
good.
So I'll touch more of the housekeeping items. So on the agenda, first is the organizational chart, and that's revised and updated to include the restructure of the cabinet. And then within there, we will also be approving the Board of Education meeting dates, and included within there are some draft presentations and work session topics. Some of that subject to change. Certainly, the best laid plans may adjust throughout the course of the year, but those are our board meeting dates for the year, as discussed. The board goals, which we'll come back to, and Michael will lead us through that discussion. The Board of Education committee roles and responsibilities with the clerical typo change that Jessica pointed out. So establishing our committees for the year and the board membership. We generally are soliciting for membership on those from community members in late September, early October. And then the school calendar, just one slight little typo as we get ready for the school year to make sure that everything is 100% correct on that. And that was related to making sure we were clear and accurate with parent-teacher conferences. So,
There was just one thing with the committee. I think you may want to put Alice as the person in charge.
thank you. So 2 corrections to make on the committees. Appreciate that. Alice Bowman will be taking over the Authentic Learning Committee. Thank you. So we want to go back to the goals then. Do you want to share those? And-
Yes. So we thought very carefully about our goals for the year with Dr. Champ, and thank you again to Sue for getting us across the finish line. So I'll read what we came up with over many hours. Delivering on a mission and vision, Board of Education Goals 2022-2023, inspiring a standard of excellence for all students. Aligning with our commitment to fiscal responsibility, high expectations, creative and critical thinking, sense of belonging, and continuous improvement, the board and superintendent will focus on the following systemic goal areas. Goal 1, examine how our vision and mission are currently understood and being met, and determine what is needed to fully meet our goals in the years ahead. This will include a focus on resetting our school community around the district's mission-aligned work while keeping strong expectations and supports in place for all students in our learning environment and using data to support our priorities, goals, and student success. Goal 2, implement the ongoing action steps of the strategic plan, which have been established around the following 3 key pillars: cultural competence, cultivate an empathetic, inclusive, and equitable school community that values and encourages respect, voice, and agency for all students. Whole child, deepen our systemic, academic, and social-emotional supports for the health, safety, and well-being of the whole child, recognizing that our learners need to balance academic, physical, social, and emotional demands. And authentic learning, develop innovative problem solvers, critical and creative thinkers, effective communicators, and strong problem collaborators who can apply their knowledge and skills to navigate real-world challenges. And lastly, Goal 3, effectively execute our oversight responsibilities as stewards of the district's finances by developing and consistently communicating our plans for a responsible district budget, current reserve balances, and long-term facilities plan. So do you want to dive into more detail?
Yes, I would be happy to. And again, I thank the board for the last 2 days of really deep collaborative work. I want to thank Judy Wilson, who is a consultant who's worked with us, and many of you may know her from our working with our district on two strategic plans now. So she's very intimately and knowledgeable about our district. She knows, I think she's met all of our administrative team, many of our faculty, and really, I think, has a good pulse on the Pelham community from her own experience, 19 years as a superintendent in other high-achieving districts. So I thank her for her work and her facilitation, and I do thank the board for the really thoughtful and engaged work over these last 2 long days together. So the goals that are put together really, goal number 1, as I shared with the board, I feel like where we are, and maybe this is not just us, but I think as a country, as an organization, as a profession, is last year we thought we were through COVID, but then we very quickly realized getting to the school year that it wasn't quite over. And we really, the capacity and the stress on the system really was much greater than we thought. But I think I really am genuinely convinced that this is the year, that we are really on the other side of things, and that we really, when we say going back to normal, that we're going to truly be able to do that this year. So that being the case, I believe, and as is really kind of the focus of this first goal, this is our year to recenter on who we are as a district, on the core and the explore. Those are 2 terms we're going to continue to use. Tracy and I attended a great business Harvard School course for educators. And they talked about core and explore work. The core, that's the core academic work of what we do as educators, the core of what school systems are, and that's what Pelham's always been great at. The last couple of years have it's been an upheaval for everyone, but to recenter on that core work and to really shine a bright light there and put our efforts strongly back into assuring that our teachers have what they need, training, resources, time, and support to deliver the quality instruction so our students can really continue to thrive. And our kids have done really well throughout that, and I think when Alice does have the chance to present, I think you're going to see some really positive news there. Not to tip any cards about anything that might be embargoed, but I think you're going to see some good news. So I think, we've done well. This is the chance to really put that front and center again. But also then as Pelham, we've always focused as well on innovation, and that's the explore side. So to get back to really that core of teaching and learning as the lead, I hope this COVID report tonight was one of the last that I have to provide for you this year. So that's the hope. So when we talk about goal number 1, as part of recentering on teaching learning, it's also going back to our vision and mission. So my hope is in the coming year, and these plans are going to be a lot more fleshed out over the course of the next couple of weeks. As we've said a couple of times, we have our administrative retreat tomorrow where we're going to delve deeper into the how of what we're going to do to accomplish these goals, but really to spend some time doing some focus group work this year with stakeholders. So that's something that folks can expect to hear a little bit more about, to really start to hone in on what does excellence mean to us as a community, as a learning community, and as Pelham, to really define what that inspiring a standard of excellence for all students genuinely means to us, and then work on how is it that we're delivering on that mission and vision. Also, as part of recentering, we've had some great experiences over the last couple of years with PLCs and instructional rounds. I think those are great tools that could assist us moving forward to continue to recenter and strengthen our core and explore work. And as Alice mentioned earlier, we're implementing tools like branching minds. So looking at ways that we can leverage the data that we have available to us to really continue to accelerate our work and continue to point the direction forward. So those are some things that are going to be coming back hopefully by the end of September and sharing with you a little bit more detail around really more specifics about what that may look like. And then, of course, when we move to goal number 2, where we talk about implementing the strategic plan, as we shared back at the end of the school year, the administrators spent last year really taking a critical look at where we were coming out of COVID with our strategic plan and updating the action items. So in my meetings with the cabinet, we've looked through those, the tasks that were laid out to continue to further that work that was identified in the strategic plan back in 2019. That plan runs through 2024. So we've kind of delegated out responsibility for those key areas. And then as the cabinet meet with the team that works with them, that's where we're going to, again, flesh out those next action items at the departmental level, the building level, and how those items will move forward in the coming year. And then two, I know Michael may want to speak to this one too, the third goal. I'm happy to see that goal as well, that the board, I had a feeling the board was going to value that, and I think that's critically important that we are looking at our facilities and finance from a long-term perspective. So I'm excited for next week's building tour. I know Jim and John, it's one of their Super Bowl days of the year, because they really like to show off the great work that our facilities staff has put in, but also great chance for the board to dig deep into the facilities needs. So I look forward to that opportunity. I didn't know if you want to pass it back to you for more talk on goal 3, or if there's questions.
Yeah, I would just say in general, I feel like we came up with something, everybody together, that really speaks to what's on the mind of a lot of parents and the community. Kind of where do we go after the past 2 years? A reset, like you said, and what's the long-term plan going forward? And I think beyond that, I would just like to say to our staff and faculty especially that I think I could speak for the whole board that we are 100% behind our faculty and support them, and looking forward to the amazing things that they're going to be doing over the next year.
I have
Thank
one
you.
quick comment. I just found an extra word, totally my fault. So if we could approve it with the understanding that in the third bullet, there's an extra use of the word problem. It says strong problem collaborators. It should just say strong collaborators. So, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're voting on
voting.
6.1 through 6.5. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? No.
Thank you.
So 6.6 is a motion to approve and accept the Pelham Public School District-wide School Safety Plan. I have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions?
Jim, you just want to reaffirm the changes, the actual changes to the plan?
Yes, thank you. So the changes, as I shared with the board, is really the addition of personnel and the new appointment of personnel at both villages. So that's how we kind of keep it updated as the year goes by. So that's really the only change. And once, over the last month, these documents have been available for public inspection as well. So people have had an opportunity to review, members of the community, if they so choose, they've had an opportunity to review it. It's also been up on the district website.
And I know this is often said, but probably bears repeating. This is the bit that the public can see, and then there's a safety plan that
That's a
is
great point. Thank you, Ed, and I didn't say that. That's right. This is the forward-facing document, and then we have more detailed confidential plans, which would include things like floor plans and response scenarios that are held at the local building level, which we also have to review and submit to the state every year.
I know safety is on the top of mind of a lot of parents. If somebody had a particular safety concern about their child's school building or something like that, what would be the best way to proceed? To contact the principal and
Yeah.
pass that along?
Absolutely. Yep, building principal or assistant principal if it's the middle school, high school. That would be the best point of contact.
And we have a safety committee
Correct.
that has community members.
Yes.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that would be another, if somebody was particularly interested in this
Mhm.
topic,
Right.
we'll be soliciting applications for
Correct.
committee memberships.
Yeah, later in September is generally when we get those organized.
Mhm.
And we often, especially for a committee like this, look for someone with expertise in the area of safety and security. We've had some great parents have joined over the last number of years and brought some great insight from their professional as well as personal perspectives.
Any other comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. I think I'll do 6.7 through 6.14 as a consent agenda. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any comments or questions on these items? These are the budget transfers, swimming pool, maybe most importantly, the emergency pizza.
I think so. You're voting for pizza.
Yes. You are heroes.
And just what I should have asked this earlier, the disposal of Chromebooks, just very briefly, what does that disposal look like? Are they recycled? Are they sold? Are they thrown out?
In many instances, for surplus materials, what we'll do is we'll auction them off with electronics information or electronics equipment such as this. I'm going to talk to the director of technology and look at it, look at his recommendation. There are vendors that are sometimes looking to buy these, but we'll take a look. I mean, they're Chromebooks, so there's really no personal information. There's no hard drives on them. But as I understand it, they are done. They really don't have much use other than taking up space right now.
Yeah, and I would just add too that Mr. Sabalos, Director of Technology, has done a great job of getting us on a replenishment cycle since he's come to the district, which I think is great because then you will see annual disposal of Chromebooks, but we're able to then refresh them. I think everything's within 4, that's what I was thinking. So all students will have, when the cycle is fully in place, which I think it is at this point in time, no student should have a Chromebook that's more than 4 years old, unless it's like a replacement or a substitute, which wasn't the case before when we started our one-to-one, because it was grant funded some, budget funded some, but now he's got us on a really consistent replenishment cycle, which has upgraded the quality of the tool for our students.
And students who are new to the district or who are entering 6th grade will receive their Chromebooks on the
Yeah.
first day of school.
Yeah, the district maintains, I don't know if it's the first day of school, but I know the district maintains an extra
Shortly after
supply.
the first day of school.
Yes. Yep, and this year, I believe, this is the year that we were able to expand fully all the way planned within that replenishment cycle through kindergarten. So K through 12, we have a one-to-one device planned and allocated for them. They stay in the classroom at the elementary level, and then they're 24/7, come home with the kids from grade 6 up.
Okay, so 6.7 through 6.14. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? No. Section 7, policy monitoring and governance. 7.1 is the motion to adopt the code of conduct for the 2022-2023 school year. Have a motion?
So
Some-
moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay.
I can just touch on this
Mhm.
briefly before we vote. Obviously, we'll take draft only off the cover, so that's our edit on the front of that. So this will become the approved version tonight if the board approves that. And if you may recall, last time I said we were working on multiple documents, so unfortunately, we don't have a red line version to provide to you on this. But in general, our edits to this really came down to alignment with policy, because many of the policies that overlap with the code of conduct have been updated in the last couple of years. So things like harassment, bullying, et cetera, those type policies, we aligned the language so that there would be correlation. In some cases, it's a portion of the policy because we didn't need to reiterate the entire policy within the code. We can just cross-reference it. But we work with the administrators to highlight those pieces that were most relevant and important for their work with students and families, making sure all the definitions were included that were relevant. Something like detention had been left out. So we thought that's a pretty common tool, so we wanted to make sure things like that are in there. So clarifying this, I'm just skimming through to hit some of the highlights. Much of this is statutory language or template of what's required through the SAVE legislation as to what belongs in what is required in a district code of conduct. So you will see it to be, in some cases, very similar to other districts because those are the statutory pieces or embedded in law, regulation, or case law. Skimming down, we will add page numbers to it in the final version as well. Pauline, if we can remember to do that. I know that I'm trying to skim through, and then I know there was some feedback that came our way. I did get a few emails. Well, I'll skim through and then we'll go to the feedback. Clarifying and updating, just making sure that all the roles were laid out correctly as far as students, parents, teachers, support staff, administrators, updating of the Dignity for All Students Act. That section was a lot of revision, again, to align with policy and practice. Dress code, we did add parenthetically under number 1, so this is approximately page 15. The example, parenthetical example of no bare midriffs as a way to illustrate brief or revealing garments. I know there may be some question or discussion around that as we did get a variety of feedback on that. That was it that changed in the dress code section. Engaging in the conduct that is disorderly and insubordinate. That's an area where we wanted to be sure to clarify that those things that are common, that our administrators are that are encountering commonly within the schools were touched upon in here. And again, some alignment, I'm seeing words like the discrimination, harassment, bullying, making sure, cyberbullying, I believe that was an addition, making sure that we're in alignment with policies. Hazing is listed in here, and as you'll see tonight, we're also approving that policy.
One quick question on that. I mean, throughout the document, there is language about, protecting from intimidation, harassment, or discrimination. And then it lists a series of categories, based on race, color, weight, national origin, et cetera. But someone should be protected for any reason, right? It's not restricted to just these categories, right?
Yeah, and I think it depends on which processes you go through. Because as we were speaking earlier tonight, DASA is something that's specific to bullying for protected classes. But we have bullying policy that is broad and applicable
Right.
to any student. In
Right,
any
for any
circumstance.
reason.
Any reason,
Mhm.
correct. So that's often why not all bullying is DASA, but all bullying is bullying. So we have vehicles in which to deal with violations of these, whether they're considered a protected class or not.
Yep.
The law, most things like that, with DASA being a great example, come from law or regulation, which is why they're called out specifically. And those lists of protected classes are different throughout at different times because of where the regulation or law that piece emanates from. It's whatever's encapsulated in that. So some of the consistency comes from the base document or regulation.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
to your point, there is an opportunity to protect all students.
Right, I just want
under
that to be the
harassment,
fundamental
bullying.
lesson that
Absolutely.
intimidation, harassment, or discrimination
Are not
for-
tolerated towards
period.
any student, period.
for any
Yes.
reason.
Correct.
And-
Ac-
sorry.
Oh, sorry, I was going to say academic misconduct, that's another area we wanted to make sure that everything was accurately reflected in there, so there was a little bit of tweaking of language there. Jessica, did you have a?
Oh, just
Another
similar
question?
to your comment about in the safety plan, that the new assistant principal at the high school needs to get updated here too.
Ah, very good. Yeah, Pauline, that's another edit. So thank you. And that points out the DASA coordinators have been updated according to the current ones. We'll update the assistant principal at the high school as well. And I know that we also had talked about adding in one psychologist at the middle school and high school as secondary DASA coordinators. So I'm going to get those names. Tracy, I'm going to have to ask you to help me remember that. There was conversation prior to you coming here about that. So there are names. I just have to follow up with the principals on who those were. I believe it was Dr. Joseph at the middle school. And I want to say Dr. Hergenrother at the high school. So we're going to get those, and we will include that if the board's okay with that, and the final approval of the addition of those secondary DASA coordinators. Just want to highlight any other specifics. Again, this is penalties. This is basically, regulatory templated language, not within here, but in our student handbooks at both the middle school and high school. The administrators went through and met together and really worked to align and categorize infractions so that there was like level 1 infractions, level 2, level 3, spell those out very clearly as to what level they're at. And then also what the respective consequences would be so that there's more clarity and transparency for parents and for students about what to expect in various disciplinary situations. And so that there's alignment across the two schools. So that is something that folks can look for, separate from this document, but very much related. Anything else?
I had the question on the dress code, but I wanted to, I know you're going through
Yeah.
this, go through the whole thing.
Okay, yeah, I'm almost to the end of highlights. And again, a lot of this just, I'm down to about page 39. Student searches and questioning, that was updates from policy that we revised in the last year or so. Visitors to school, public conduct on school property, that's always an important one because this does apply to everyone who's on school property and not just school students, even though the focus of the document is primarily student behavior. I think I missed it near the beginning, but we did make sure to reinforce that the code is applicable to school property, that Julianne's playground is school property. That wasn't explicitly stated in the past. It's included in there now. We also added in here the language around what off-campus discipline is also subject to the code of conduct, which is something folks don't often understand. If there is a connection to the school, to a potential disruption to the school or threat to the school, then that is covered by this as well. So one piece I will start with, I know that Will had sent me the suggestion of one paragraph. It's on page 41. Of course, we don't have page numbers. So if you use your PDF page numbers, it's near the end. It's under the public conduct on school property section. End of page 41, there's a paragraph. The restrictions on public conduct to school property and at school functions contained in this code are not intended to limit freedom of speech or peaceful assembly. The district recognizes that free inquiry and free expression are indispensable to the objectives of the district. The purpose of this code is to maintain public order and prevent abuse of the rights of others. So Will had raised that as a suggestion that we move that instead of near the end of the document, since it's such an important statement, to move that near the front. So I'm suggesting adding that into the introduction section, maybe after the second paragraph or so.
Would you consider doing the same, you're suggesting the public conduct and visitors to the schools? Because I feel like in a way, maybe visitors to schools should go too.
I gotta go all the way to the end. Will, I don't know if you want to talk any more about that or if that captures.
Sure, just to share the comment that I shared with Dr. Champ, this document is, largely a set of instructions on how not to behave, but that section or that verbiage on page 41 or 42 or wherever it is, I think is a really positive statement. The one that says that, the restrictions on public conduct on school property and at school functions contained in this code are not intended to limit freedom of speech or peaceful assembly. The district recognizes that free inquiry and free expression are indispensable to the objectives of the district. I just really applaud that statement, and I think we all want to return to a time when we can disagree in an agreeable manner, and if we can bring that language that is already in the document further up to the introduction, I think it would set a good tone.
Okay. Folks are okay with that adjustment? Jessica, did you want to add something to that?
Sorry, I quickly looked at this section, and I haven't gone back to reread it
Okay.
prior to this comment that I'm going to make, but would we, since we're talking about kind of like others than just students, would we want to group that together with visitors to schools and bring that up as well? It's not quite as beautifully stated as what you're talking about, but
The penalty for visitors.
just the whole
could say-
section,
yeah.
visitors to schools. Both are a nod to the point that you made about the fact that this document, behavior on school property and being on school property applies to some people that aren't just students.
We certainly can. I mean, it refers, in the introduction, it does refer to visitors.
Okay.
What is it, fourth paragraph? Unless otherwise indicated, this code applies to all students, personnel, parents, or other visitors when on school property or attending a school function.
It's not something I feel strongly about. It's just a reaction to moving the other
Yeah.
section up.
Okay. Anyone feel strongly one way or the other on moving visitors? Okay.
If it doesn't change the
Doesn't change the
the
substance.
spirit or the substance of the document, then
No.
It just
No,
seems to
yeah.
organize it better if you're going to move the
Okay.
other section up. But
All right, so Pauline, we're going to move that visitors section from, I think it's about page 41 as well. Jackie?
Yes.
Jackie, your mic.
Oh, thank you. About the dress code, so we use the example of no bare midriffs, and we talked about how
Yeah.
that's kind of the fashion, and it seems directed towards girls' fashion, and I'm just wondering, was that, why that particular example is put in there?
So, I would say it's really directed at all students. I think you're right in that current trend is for young ladies. I think that is an issue that the administrators certainly were struggling with this year, because the extremely briefness of some things, it's, let me put it this, it's a difficult rule because that's somewhat subjective, and I think they were looking for something a little bit more concrete, so that rules were clear for everyone, and students didn't feel targeted. They didn't feel like, one adult was saying one thing, another adult had a different opinion of something. So to try to put some kind of clarity around it, I think was the goal.
Okay.
Certainly not targeting of girls, but I think current fashion likely would see more of an issue with the young ladies.
Okay. Was it causing a problem last year or in recent years?
There was, I think, a fair amount of administrative time spent dealing with
Okay.
dress code.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
if you stand outside the high school, you'll see that's pretty commonplace, that's the
Oh.
main outfit going into
I
high
know,
school.
that's,
so.
Yeah.
that was
You know,
my
I mean,
concern, that everyone has to
Yeah.
change their outfits.
And if further conversation is needed, that's fine. I'm certainly, happy to make an edit on that too, if folks feel that more conversation is needed. But, if anyone else had thoughts on that.
Not on that.
Okay.
But just in terms of further conversation and as more of a process question, which is, I totally understand that we want to and we want to get this signed off and voted on for the beginning of the school year, so it's in place. But just in terms of process, if, for example, the members of the community who raised some issues or some
Yeah.
considerations which were, there was a lot in there, and probably too much, certainly for me to get my head around, like in person
moment.
right now. But there are some interesting themes, particularly as they relate to the ever-shifting kind of sands of social media and smartphones. What is the process, and I think you alluded to it, Michael, of being able to absorb that type of feedback, dissect it, absorb it, and then perhaps reintroduce it in some productive way into this document later in the school year? Can you just explain, for my benefit and for benefit of anyone else, what that process may look like?
can tackle that. Yeah. We're required to approve the code of conduct every year, so that's just one of the procedural pieces. But that does not prevent us from opening up and reviewing it during the school year. So that's what I'd say if they're particular, and that is what we tried to do this year, is at least a refresh update of making sure that the language correlated with our policies, because we knew that we had some disconnection. So if there's a desire of the board to reconsider pieces of that, the policy committee
Right,
is
so
the place
so
for
the
that.
policy committee that meets how many times a year?
We were
Sort of-
meeting about monthly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
So
to do their
frequently,
work. Yeah.
that may be or that would be the forum or
Yeah.
the vehicle through which these types of issues can be
Correct.
absorbed and digested and passed through.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, with that kind of feedback that's been shared with us, then the board members who are, and the administrators who are part of the policy committee can then, plan the agenda for that, for the meetings this year and determine, which pieces we may take up for
Thank you.
consideration.
And I think I may have asked this last time, but I don't remember the answer. There is a teacher and staff code of conduct or something similar, or a handbook?
We have policy. I
Policy.
think each building has their own teacher handbooks as
Mhm.
far as orienting them to school procedures, et cetera.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's why you don't see things in here about staff dress code and things like that, because that's captured either in policy, in their code of ethics and their collective bargaining agreements, staff handbooks, et cetera. So even though this is applicable to everyone, the focus is primarily
For
students.
students. And this is already sort of captured in their handbook for the beginning of school?
Yeah, pieces of it, we're required to provide a plain language version
Mhm.
of this within their handbooks. So there should be elements of this, the critical things like attendance policy, discipline policy, academic integrity, pieces like this. It's certainly not going to be the entire document, but it'll be those most relevant pieces to student life.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Kind of to further answer your question, well, with policy, so this code of conduct is unique in the sense that it's immense, much bigger than any of our other policies. And it's also one that we have to review by law every year, and we have to have a public hearing, as you said, with a month span, so that the public has the opportunity to, and it's always unfortunately in the summer, but to reflect on any changes made and contribute. And then we are in a position where we need to adopt it as we head into the school year. It's already been described how we might review the code of conduct, but with our policies, you've probably seen us with 3 readings. You can waive the third, but we have to have at least 2 readings. And the point of the readings, the public readings, that's after the whole policy committee has gone through a review process and we've deliberated. When it comes to the public and we read aloud, we get feedback from the board and/or the public, and we bring it back to the committee in the process of these 3 readings. So it's meant to be collaborative with the community and with the board and with the committee itself. So we value the feedback.
Dr. Champ, since this is not just for students, are parents sent an email link with some, parts of the policy that may be applicable to them?
I believe it's definitely on our school website. I believe there's generally links in what we used to call the summer mailings, which are now mostly electronic. There should be links to. There's links on every school district school site to it. There's links on the district site to it, but it should also be contained in that information that is sent home to parents. Either, if not the full document, then the plain language version in the student handbooks. Yep. And what we'll do tonight too, and we did it for the last couple of notices after the July board meeting where we had the hearing on the code of conduct and the safety plan, we sent a link to those in the meeting summary, in the meeting notice. I think they went in the meeting notice for tonight as well. So when we do the board wrap up for this meeting, we'll include it one more time to try to over communicate and put the hyperlinks there so folks can, especially once we get the edited version. So we'll make those edits. Pauline will coordinate with Alex, and we'll get that pushed out to all parents in the community.
And with sports teams starting, there are plans for coaches to be reviewing components of it that apply to sports teams, I hope.
Yes. Oh,
Okay.
yeah. And that was part of,
At
I've
the
gone
start of
over.
every
Yeah,
season.
Mr. Hodge has coaches trainings each season, and I've gone over the contents of that with him to make sure things, especially when he knew that, the hazing is a new policy, or not new policy, it's an updated policy. So I made sure that he knew that, look, we're updating hazing, be sure that it's touched on in your coaches' trainings. So that's one example of many things that are included.
Thank you.
I do notice, just trying to search quickly, that, the section on searches includes searching your desk, searching your locker, searching your purse or backpack, searching your Chromebook, but I don't see, and it's probably a very important point, searching your phone, which is probably gonna come up, so that's something that we could definitely discuss.
I'd want to take a look back at the full search and questioning policy, because I know the full policy is not here. And the policies are the guiding, are the, let me backtrack. Policy, if there's a conflict between the code of conduct and the policy prevails. But within this, we tried to take the key pieces of the policy. So I'd want to go back and check the policy, because I know we spent a lot of time on that policy, and we may have added in a piece in there about electronics, personal electronics, but we may not have, as well, to the point. So I think it's just worth I'll take a check back on that.
Any other comments or questions?
Let me ask just one more time if folks are comfortable with the example of the no bare midriff.
I'm fine, because I'm thinking boys could walk around without a shirt. That to me is a bare midriff, right? Or if
Yeah.
their pants are too low.
Right.
That to me is a bare midriff. So it's not necessarily just, targeting females. It could also be something that's applicable to males, so.
There's workout clothes that are cut off.
Just no shirts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess we can go forward with the vote, and we would vote with the edits as discussed.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
7.2 is policy 7553, hazing of students. This is the second reading. So we won't really be voting on this tonight.
Or we could do a third reading, or we could vote to, what's the word?
Waive the third.
Waive the third reading, and then vote to approve it if we so chose.
Is this something that we want to have in place for athletics and?
I think it would be ideal. Yeah.
We spent a lot of time with this policy in committee. I know it's only the second time that the board's had it, but it's been out there for now a while.
And we haven't gotten any feedback or
No.
questions or edits since last time. So I think it's very, and our administrators looked through this, they were a big part of the revisions. So I think it's, should be in good shape.
Okay, so do I have a motion to waive the third reading?
So moved.
Second?
Second for Will.
Okay, Jessica. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Okay, so
Now you have to take a motion to
No.
vote on it.
a motion to approve policy 7553, hazing of students.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Sue. Any comments or questions? Yeah, I think like you said, the administrators really looked closely at this and updated the definitions and
Correct.
tightened it up. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Okay, section 8, superintendent's personnel recommendations. 8.1 is a motion to approve the agreement for interim assistant principal at Pelham Memorial High School. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Jackie and Sue. Any comments or questions? Yeah, we reviewed this, and I feel very confident.
So I can make just one comment, if you don't mind?
Sure.
It's something which we made a change on. is that there has been, especially through COVID, just reviewing our substitute teacher pay, right? There's always that crunch and that need every year, but through COVID has been much more substantial because of people who've been sick and testing positive and so forth, the staff members. So there was a major change that we did last year with the acting superintendent in terms of sub rate, and that sunset in June. But looking at it and reviewing, looking at some data and seeing what's happening in neighboring districts, whether our previous sub pay rates were still too low, where we were attracting enough subs, and we wanted to remain competitive. So when we did review, there was a BOCES survey, but also I did a survey of just neighboring districts in terms of what they're paying. We concluded that we wanted to raise some of the rates for this year, not to the level it was when Dr. Laura was here. We did it for like $200 a day and so forth. But we feel that this is much more competitive for us, and that's why we're recommending these changes. We discussed it with obviously my colleague, but also with the teachers union, just to make sure that we're, I think, on the same page with it. So we're satisfied with these recommendations to you.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, so this is 8.1.
Right, we'll vote on that, and then we can
Yeah.
move to.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? No. So let's do 8.2 through 8.6 as a consent agenda. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Seconded.
Okay. Any comments or questions on these items? And thank you for that.
Sure, and I apologize. It's getting late, so my brain's
Jump in the
getting
gun.
Same section.
Sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Section 9, Pupil Personnel Services, 9.1, motion to approve Schedule D, Committee on Special Education. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Ian. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Section 10 is new business. We will move along. Section 11, communication and comments from the public.
John Miller again, 322 6th Avenue. Thank you for your thoughtful discussion of the Code of Conduct, now that you've pulled the draft phrase off of the document. I just make this additional appeal here. How you present this to students is critical. Helping them understand the need to be responsible with it is really key. And to build off of a point that you made, Mr. Treves, which I thought was excellent, which is understanding the role and importance of free expression. As part of that, educating students on the reality of miscommunication and understanding intent, and allowing adults to help allay their fears. We've seen instances where, quite frankly, we allow students to dictate what they think they should be afraid of. We need to, as responsible adults, help them understand that there are rational fears and irrational fears. To speak to a great point that you made, Mr. Rowe, really resonates with me. There is prejudice against protected classes, but no prejudice, no discrimination should be allowed for any reason, and that includes against people who are newcomers. I think that there is a problem that we should think about of how newcomers who are unknown to the community are viewed and treated by students. This isn't unique to Pelham. This is, anywhere where it's a smaller community. And there are children who have grown up together. They've known each other since kindergarten. And when new people come in, they're like blank canvases they can pour their fears onto. So I'd ask that, again, as you present this to the student body, please try to convey some of these messages. It's important. And again, I appreciate we threw a lot of information on you, so of course we'll circulate our statement so you have time to digest it and send follow-up questions to us. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. President, would you entertain a motion to convene this meeting?
Yes. Do I have a second?
Second.
I think you meant adjourn.
Oh.
Yeah, you said
Oh,
that.
I'm just having so much fun with you guys. I want to start this all over again. Getting late to Steve's point. A motion to adjourn.
Yes.
Reconvene at our homes.
Next week, 2 weeks from now.
I think you
That
got
I'll
a second.
Second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Any opposed, any abstentions?
No way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.